to do today is to invite the governor and commend her because she said all life is sacred. We go for that.
Yes.
All life is sacred. Hopefully she's listening, and hopefully she will have the courage to really believe it.
What we're trying to abolish is hate.
Yes.
What we're trying to abolish is this dehumanizing practice.
Yes.
You can't stop murder with murder. You can't stop stealing with stealing. You can't stop rape with rape. It seems so obvious, but it don't seem that obvious to the folks that inhabit this building.
As a civilized society, we have got to do better. And how can you sit there and watch a human being die? It's ultimate torture.
We are bringing back a very ancient method of execution that was used in the 1940s. This is not okay. We are not restored by killing another human being.
According to the UN Human Rights Office, this method of execution could amount to torture. So we stand here today asking Governor Ivey to have a last-minute change of heart and do the right thing and halt this execution.
And welcome, everybody. It's Sunday night. It's the first Sunday of the month of October in 2025. My name is Abe Bonowitz, and I'm with Death Penalty Action, and this is the forecast, and a scary one at that, not just because Halloween is this month, but because we have 8 executions scheduled, including 6 over a 7-day period starting this Friday, which is World Day Against the Death Penalty. So we're here together once again with our program, The Forecast, to look at the each of these executions, and we're going to try to get to all of them. And there's a lot to talk about, and we're glad you're with us. Death Penalty Action is pleased to host this program. It's for people who are opposed to death penalty. So if there's any shenanigans or pushback against, in favor of the death penalty in the audience here or on any of the social media, there will be no tolerance for that. This is a place for abolitionists. And also, those who are speaking for Death Penalty Action are the people who are staff, such as myself, or board members of Death Penalty Action. Everybody else is speaking for themselves with their own organization. But with that, we're going to get right into it. I want to welcome everybody, invite you to introduce yourselves, put where you're watching in the chat, where you're watching from. And of course, we are not going to be able to invite people to speak, but if you have questions from the audience, put them in the Q&A or in the chat, although it's best if you put them in the Q&A, and we're going to try to get to them. But again, we have 8 executions to talk about. And we're going to start. We're going to take them in order, with the exception of Florida. We'll lump together the Florida one at the end of the month with the one that's next week. Talked about both of those at the same time, but otherwise we'll take them in order for when they're scheduled. You can find all of the petitions, Death Penalty Action petitions, and I will put a link in the chat on the webpage at deathpenaltyaction.org. And within each petition, and we'll share some of this a little bit more, within each petition is more that you can do. And what we're going to be doing, we're going to be starting a little bit of a different way of doing our calls to action by email, just because there's so much going on. We're letting you know right now, when you sign the petition, you're going to get an email back that has who to call, where to call, what number to call, and also how to register for the live virtual vigils. So there'll be less emails, just reminding everybody about all the things, because there's so many executions coming up. And also we need to cut back on the numbers of emails that we're sending, because we pay for them as we go, and we have to cut back on expenses too. So with that, welcome. everybody to this program, to the forecast. And we're going to start with Indiana, which is that execution is scheduled for this, it's really Thursday night, but it's December 10th. Sorry, October 10th, World Day Against the Death Penalty. And that person being killed is Roy Ward. And we're going to hear now and welcome Karen Burkhart from, well, wears a number of hats, Amnesty International and the Catholic Church, and of course Indiana Abolition Coalition. And Karen, Karen is a very heavy duty Catholic. That's her main frame, and therefore we get to celebrate what Pope Leo said last week. Which,
exactly.
Karen, how was your reaction to that when you saw that?
I've been waiting for it for 50 years. How about that?
Okay.
It's one of those things, being an abolitionist for so long and waiting for some really strong words about how the Catholics should be. It's gratifying to me after all this time and all this wait. And it's really nice. Catholic Mobilizing Network has acted on the whole idea of executions this month with the novena to end the death penalty. It's not too late to join. And I'm just going to give them a little plug of praying for 9 days to end the death penalty in anticipation of World Day Against the Death Penalty, in hopes that maybe even Governor Braun will change his mind and grant clemency to Roy Ward for his scheduled execution for killing, raping, and murdering in 2001 Stacey Payne, which he has had his clemency hearing and with the parole board, but he did not attend, and they were sort of a little aggravated about it. And all I can say is that the governor decided not to grant a commutation, but he has the ability to change his mind up to the last minute. And so we still want people to call and send him emails this week, if possible. And you can go to the Death Penalty Action website to get that information and send out
someone who says I'm against abortion but says I'm in favor of the death penalty is not right.
I'm sorry? But anyway, so and you can add your name to the petition. You can then, if things continue to proceed, we'll have a vigil at the prison, and it'll start sometime in the evening with the Catholic Diocese of Gary with a prayer vigil, and then continue until later in the evening and into the morning hours. And just realize that Michigan City is on Central Time. If you're in Indiana, most of Indiana is on Eastern Time. So it'll be maybe start around 8 or so, and then go till after 1, because his execution is scheduled for midnight, and it takes them some time for the most part. We'll also have a vigil at the governor's mansion, where we will start around 10 in the evening Eastern Time and go until after 2:33 in the morning, because it takes that long for the executions to occur. But and if you need any information, you can see it hopefully on the Indiana Abolition Coalition in the next few days. Any other things, Abe, that I should cover?
So, Karen, I just wanted to apologize for interrupting you. I was pulling up the Pope's quote. We'll look at that in a moment. It's just 30 seconds.
It just says I'm against abortion, but says if I'm in favor of the death penalty, is not really pro-life. a
Yeah,
person.
Karen, I'm going to play the video itself.
Oh,
here
well,
in
that's
just a
even
sec.
better.
But before,
Okay.
before I do, I just want to thank you for all your work. For those who don't know Karen Burkhardt, she is the person that Amnesty sent to try to tell me about the death penalty and help change my mind. So we go back to like the late 1980s, I think it is, whenever that meeting was. So
Yep.
thank you for your leadership there in Indiana, Karen. There's a whole bunch of other people that are doing stuff too, and we'll meet more of them. We're expecting a whole number of folks from the Defender's Office. I was in Indianapolis a couple of weeks ago when we delivered the first round of petitions to the governor's office. Lamont Hunter happened to be in town, one of the Ohio death row survivors, was given a talk to at a public defender training, and they all came over to help deliver the petitions. It was wonderful. So just before we move on from Indiana, again, sign those petitions. We're going to deliver more of them this week. And then I'm just going to share real quick, and we'll just look at what the Pope said for a moment, since it is a moment to be excited about. So here that is.
Against abortion, but says I'm in favor of the death penalty is not really pro-life. So someone who says that I'm against abortion, but I'm in agreement with the inhuman treatment of immigrants who are in the United States, I don't know if that's pro-life. So they're very complex issues. I don't know if anyone has all the truth on them, but I would ask first and foremost that there be greater respect for one another and that we search together both as human beings, in that case as American citizens or citizens of the state of Illinois. Someone who says I'm against abortion but says I'm in favor of the death penalty is not really pro-life.
And there you have it. So you get to share death penalty action, put that out on email this weekend several times. So if you haven't done that on our social media, of course, the Catholic Mobilizing Network has it on their social media, but especially if you're in Catholic circles, share that around, please. With
Abe.
that, yes.
I think it's a little bit more complicated than celebrating, and I'll say this, and then we don't have to stay on it too long. But I've heard various abolitionist priests who have argued within the last couple of days since they came out that Pope Leo is taking a step back from Pope Francis. That basically Pope Leo, by saying, I don't know if it is pro-life to do this, and this. We all have our different beliefs and whatnot, and this and that. Pope Francis was much more explicit, and
Well,
I think there's been an argument. I'm just saying that opinion is out there, that this is a step back and not a step forward.
Well, I would expect that Pope Leo is going to clarify at some point, because this was an off-the-cuff response to somebody attacking. They're giving an award to a Democrat senator in Illinois, and that was the context of that. But thank you for pushing on that, Jeff. And I'm going to expect that Pope Leo is going to clarify. And I also wanted to just include that whole business about immigration, or that is not our issue. So much is going on, and I'm grateful that he's here and speaking out. So thank you. With that, the next execution that is scheduled is in Florida. And is Grace here yet? I didn't see her earlier. Grace, are you here?
Grace is here, but she has her camera off.
Hey everyone, sorry, I'm here. I wasn't sure if I was going to go in order at the very end, but give me 1 second.
Yeah, Grace, we said we're going to put both the Florida. Do you want to wait till the end? We can do that.
Nope, I am glad to go. So hi everyone, I'm Grace. I am with Floridians for Alternatives to the Death Penalty, and I think we often, every month I come here and I talk about how we say that a lot of things are unprecedented. We say most things are unprecedented right now, but what is happening in Florida right now is actually unprecedented, at least in terms of death penalty history within the state and nationally. As of our last execution was Tuesday, a week ago, September 30th. We have executed 13 people this year, and that includes people with intellectual disabilities, people with credible innocence claims, people who did not have right to counsel, did not have access to their counsel, people who were survivors of these horrible state reform schools, just truly runs the gamut of every injustice possible. And we currently have 2 more pending executions where the governor signed the death warrant, and they will be executed this month pending any court action or any stay from the governor, which it's always worth noting that the governor has not granted clemency in any case in Florida since the 80s, since Bob Grant was the governor. So just to talk a little bit also about Florida, is that in Florida, we have the most expansive death penalty in the country. So you can be sentenced to death here with a vote of only 8 jurors of the 12. We don't require unanimity. Alabama is the only other state that is currently practicing under that. We also have the death penalty for non-homicide crimes, and the Palm Beach County State Attorney just announced their intent to seek the death penalty in a non-homicide case. So that's something we're going to continue to keep an eye on. But I want to talk a little bit about these upcoming executions this month because they're both very different, but I think raise really important things in their own right. So the first one is Mr. Samuel Smithers. He goes by Sammy, and he's scheduled for execution on October 14th. And that is for the murders of Christy Cohen and Denise Roach. And Sammy's case is really interesting because, most of the legal claims are about how he is of advanced age, as they say. So he is 72. And in Florida, we have a lot of retirees. And so it makes sense that understandably we have a lot of legal protections. We have additional legal protections for the elderly in Florida. And we really have not never, but have very rarely executed someone over the age of 70 in Florida and nationally, actually. So there's legal claims about his, capacity and the purpose of executing someone at that age. But I think what is really most important about this case that's coming is that Christy Cohen's father is very much opposed to the execution and has been since the 90s when the crime occurred. He testified at trial. He has written letters to the judge. He has written letters to the state. I spoke to him last week. He is still very much so opposed. He is in his 80s and feels strongly that this execution will not bring him peace and will not, bring his daughter back. And I think that if we say that the death penalty is for the victims, then we need to actually honor that and listen to the victims in this case. I will drop in the chat just his letter that he wrote to the judge many years ago. But I say this as someone who has spent time with him in recent weeks, that he still feels this way. And I really just encourage you all to share this widely if you can, his words. And continue to keep his family in your thoughts. And we have a petition that will go around. I believe Allie will share it. So please go ahead and sign the petition and call the governor's office and attend a vigil if you can. So if you're in Florida, we have vigils all across the state. You can go to fadp.org and find a vigil near you, or attend the virtual vigil. We'll be at Florida State Prison on the 14th. Feel free to come and say hi, come and stand in community with us, or anywhere else around the state. The second execution is Mr. Norman Merle Grimm Jr. They call him Butch. He is scheduled for execution on October 28th. And this is for the murder of Cynthia Cunningham, who was his neighbor. Norman's case is interesting also for a lot of reasons, but particularly that at the time his execution warrant was signed, he did not have any state court counsel appointed to represent him. So in Florida, there's a statutory requirement that every person on death row has continuous representation from an attorney who can file things on their behalf in state court. Norman's attorney, who was appointed to him, retired several years ago and never officially withdrew from the case. So, coincidentally, 4 days before the execution warrant was signed, the Attorney General's office filed a motion asking a judge to appoint state counsel for him. And they said, we have no idea when a warrant's going to be signed, but just in case, like, we want him to have a lawyer. 4 days later, the warrant was signed, and a court appointed counsel for him, who now has less than 30 days to, well, actually, really, they had 6 days until their first filing was due to read and review these 30 years of case history and prepare, cogent legal filings on his behalf, which is, I mean, doing that in 30 days in general would be impossible, and doing it under the pressure of a warrant is exceptionally difficult. It makes it even worse. And so Norman, as many folks might do in such a situation, kind of threw up his hands and said, okay, well, I'm going to waive my appeals because this feels like a hopeless situation. And we talk a lot about death row volunteers and, what rights does someone have to end a fight for their life at the end. And I tend to fall more on the permissive side of that. But I do feel strongly that if someone is going to do that, it should not happen in a 10-minute Zoom hearing. I think it needs to happen after conversations with counsel and people who know them, and competency evaluation in many cases. And the way that happened in this case was not, up to the standards of what Florida has done in previous cases where the inmate has wanted to waive their appeals at the end. So again, with Norman, continue to follow along with us. We will have petitions, vigils, and continue to oppose every execution. The governor has been signing warrants on the Friday before an execution, so we expect that we will have another warrant signed this Friday. And so just keep your eyes peeled. Please sign up for our emails. Do whatever you can to support us. I know I always feel like I word vomit when I come on here, but there's so much happening in the state right now. So I'm just glad you all are following along with us.
Thank you, Grace. One of the things that I found remarkable about Mr. Grimm's case was that the state itself had to file a motion alerting the court that he didn't have representation. And, and there's this whole run up to that, where they should have done so way earlier. But it's just another one of those things that, the system is so whacked out, and all they care about is carrying out executions. So
Grace, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Before we move on. So Grace, if you do not go through clemency in Florida, you are not eligible for execution until you have gone through clemency. Is that correct?
Right. So in Florida, when your appeals are exhausted, at any point after that, you can be scheduled for a clemency hearing. It is unclear really who sets clemency hearing schedules or how people are picked for that, but essentially the inmate receives a letter saying you have a clemency interview on, X date. It's usually like 5 or 6 months in advance. And they say, and your attorney for this is so-and-so. And it's not the same attorney who represented them on all of their appeals. So it's someone who doesn't know them and is represented and may or may not ever actually contact them. So they then have typically their attorneys who have been representing them, as long as they let them know that they were selected for clemency, the attorneys will assist however they can and will work with the clemency counsel that was appointed. And then they have the hearing and then you hear nothing. So because the statute says that once the governor makes the decision to deny clemency, an execution has to be scheduled within 30 days. So essentially the governor just sits on all of these clemency hearings and denies it at the time he signs the warrant. So until someone's had a clemency interview, they're not eligible for execution. But some people had clemency interviews in the 80s.
Yeah, so there's literally dozens and dozens and dozens of people who have had clemency hearings who are currently waiting to be executed. I think this is something people don't necessarily understand, that there's dozens and dozens of people who have had these clemency interviews, and then there's other people who are going through and then getting a date like a month or two after going through the clemency hearing. So with Anthony Wainwright, he was, I mean, I think that was 2 months after he had had the clemency interview. And there's other folks, like you said, who are 40 years after the clemency interview. Anyways.
I think the farthest distance we've had is like 17 years. We're not sure, but like then there's the guys who had clemency in like the early 90s and they're like, okay, well, like, does that count still? Or like, would I have to do it again? You know, like people don't know. And so, yeah, every Friday, the guys are all on the road waiting for them to come get one of them. And it could be any of them. There's no rhyme or reason to it like there is in other states.
Thank you, Grace.
The death penalty is torture. And this is part of it. I actually like to point out that it's the weight that's the torture. Death row is torture. We just got an email from somebody who's a pen pal. Let's see, I think his name is Thomas Moore, is the prisoner. Yeah. And just saying that he just got a letter saying clemency and asking us to help build a campaign around his case. And I know that Grace is working on that too. Actually, we're looking for your leadership, Grace, on that and FADP. But the bottom line is that you know, I'm reminded of how it was during the federal execution spree every Friday night. I was just waiting for the phone call. Somebody was calling to tell me that who just got the tap on the shoulder, warden wants to see you, and they right away pulled out and then sent to Death Watch, and never to see their own cell or their own stuff or their friends again. So that's kind of what's happening in Florida. Although obviously, if you're alerted that you got clemency coming, you're not yet hauled off to Death Watch, but
sure,
that's what's happening.
Yeah, and you know, I just like to add a human piece to this is that some of the guys who have been kind of taken to Death Watch, they come and they read the warrant and they strip for a search, and then they say, grab your address book and come with me. And the guards who have taken them off have said things like, why do you have so much stuff? Like, come on, you had clemency, you knew this was coming. Like, you should have started getting rid of your stuff. And they're just like, well, like, I've been waiting for a decade. Like I didn't know this was coming. Like, at some point I stopped believing you, right? Because it was so long ago. And so just that like torture that even the guards are telling them basically like, don't live your life, start getting rid of your stuff before, and they could be there another 20 years. So
it's outrageous.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, thank you, Grace. Any other questions for Grace? I didn't see anything in the Q&A. We're just so honored that you're with us, Grace, and we're all in support of you and Bridget and Maria and everybody else on the Florida team. Can't imagine what it's like to be in those shoes. Well, I can imagine it a little bit, but there it is. All right.
You ran this organization at one point, so you certainly know a bit about it. Yeah.
We didn't have anything like this. The closest I've been to a situation like this is, I guess, watching what was happening in Texas in the late 1990s, and then, of course, the federal execution spree. But in any case, thank you again, Grace. We're all with you, and anything you need, let us know. So let's see here. We are back to, well, I'll just look here for a moment. So this is the webpage of Death Penalty Action, deathpenaltyaction.org, and that's where you can find the petitions. I think they're in order. So we've talked about Roy Ward, and we've talked about Samuel Smithers, and now we're going to talk about Lance Shockley. So with us from Missourians to Abolish the Death Penalty is what it is now. Heidi Moore is the executive director there. Welcome, Heidi.
Thanks, Dave. Hey, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
All right. So, yeah, right now, Missouri's set to execute Lance Shockley on the 14th. We will do our petition delivery Tuesday, the 7th, with a press conference at noon in the Capitol Rotunda. I've had people say, why is there any hope this time, especially after Parsons? This is a new governor. He's the first Catholic governor we've had since 1981. And with the Catholic Mobilizing Network and with the amount of support and the claims of innocence, that's all circumstantial, I do believe we have more hope than we ever had with Parsons, and I will hang on to that. Lade Shockley was convicted of murdering a Missouri State Highway Patrol trooper in which there's no evidence linking him to the crime. Eyewitnesses who testified against him actually have later said that they were forced into the timeline to make it work. There was other suspects that were never investigated. There was corrupt local law enforcement and corrupt city officials at the time. There were errors in the trial court. Lanes did not have adequate counsel because the public defenders pulled out because a jail guard said he heard Lance confess. Lance has always maintained his innocence. And we've backed his innocence claim the entire time. I understand that there's hesitation for people to do that. But anyway, Lance has a daughter, Morgan, and another daughter, Summer, who back him. I've been interacting with some people the past few weeks, and someone approached me and they said that they're from Van Buren and that we don't want Lance killed. I was interacting earlier this week at a documentary screening about innocence, and a Missouri exoneree, not a death exoneree, but he did 20 some years and he knows Lance. And he said Lance is one of the best guys ever. He said he said, I know his case and it's so flawed. The courts right now, we have no reprieve in the courts. I mean, they're still making their way through, but they did a motion for DNA that was denied. We had I'm looking here to get this right. There were 3 amicus briefs filed with the appeals: the Innocence Network and the Center for Integrity and Forensic Science. A second one was 6 nationally recognized forensic DNA experts and Dr. Mark Perlin, creator of the True Alley program. The Attorney General's office did not, they didn't oppose the filings, but the court denied it in less than an hour. Without stating a reason why. So it's been appealed to it's being appealed. They filed a motion last week to the Missouri Supreme Court asking for a stay to vacate the death sentence, just to at least allow these appeals to get through. There's over a dozen pieces of evidence that were found at the crime scene that have never been tested with DNA or modern day DNA. Monday, the order to expedite the death sentence was, the order to expedite to vacate the death sentence was denied. So they're not going to let that go through quickly. Anyway, I don't know. I know that we have some events coming up. We've collected nearly 6,000 petitions with them combined. DPAs, the legal teams, ours, Catholic Mobilizing Network. Please sign some more petitions. We're going to drop them on Tuesday. Anyone in Missouri that wants to join us at the Capitol will be in the first floor rotunda. We do a press conference and then we deliver the petition silently to the governor's office. This is just a formal. The petitions are emailed to the governor by lawyers in an orderly fashion, like most petitions are submitted. I don't really know what else you want me to say, Abe. There's so much to say. We're going to have the walk, but I don't know how much you want to talk about. So
I'll just share that there's a number of things coming up, including also Tuesday after the petition delivery. Heidi and one of the attorneys and a mitigation specialist are doing a presentation at University of Missouri. Is that it? And UM, you're never quite sure which one it is, but there's that. We're looking at setting up some other events around the state. I'm planning to be in Indiana and then drive over to Missouri, and I'd have a surprise guest or 2 with me. We'll see how that goes. And then I'll be in Missouri Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, but Monday morning from the Boone County Courthouse, we're going to start a walk from there to Jefferson City, which is the capital, where the Capitol building is. So that's on Monday and Tuesday. If anybody wants to get on a plane or drive over to central Missouri and join us, you're welcome to. Hopefully we get to cancel all of this, because what we do know is that all of the documentation is being given to the governor tomorrow. Monday. And then once the governor has the petitions from the lawyers and all the things that they're asking him to look at, that's when he can make his decision. And we hope, I see you, Jeff, we hope we can, the governor will make a decision one way or the other just to take the suspense away from it, the right decision. And that's why tomorrow morning, we're asking people to start the phone calls, and you'll see an email about that early tomorrow to start besieging the governor in Missouri with phone calls to remind him that people want him to do the right thing. And Heidi, I may have missed it if you mentioned it, but on Friday there was a new poll that was released. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
And thank you, Reverend Dr. Hood, for putting it in the chat, and Allie for putting that quote that I love so much. It's the Missouri Governor Missouri Governor. He's a new governor, Mike Kehoe. He's not had to make a decision to put his pro-life beliefs to make sure that they align with the teachings of the church. So the study was out of University of California, Irvine. The chair of psychology, Nicholas Surich, he actually appeared at the clemency with the lawyers last week. So in Missouri, probation and parole, they're kind of a part of the clemency process. I know because I was the parole officer at the prison where the guys are housed. And so after they read the death warrant, then the institutional parole officer would be the second person to see them and tell them that someone would be coming to interview them. Most of the attorneys tell the guys and advise them not to participate. The proceedings are private in Missouri. They don't get a copy of it. The attorneys can't be present. And then the attorneys schedule time with the governor. Probation and parole makes a report. The parole board makes a report. It doesn't have to be released to the public, and the governor does not have to listen to it. The governor had time, or his general counsel had time with legal, and they get about 2 hours to present their case. There's a video on the MADP website from I Stand with Lance of a 36-minute video that they showed at the clemency hearing. And this professor, the chair, Dr. Skurridge, he found that in Missouri, 65% of Missouri voters believe the governor should commute Shockley's sentence. Now, granted, as a PhD, I have to step back and say, well, it is only 440 participants, but he weighted it. And one of the really significant pieces of this study to me is even people who support the death penalty are supportive of Lance Shockley getting clemency. And he gave a few reasons why. And the fact that he was able to be with the governor's general counsel out of California, has no ties to the case, I think will be very helpful to our cause, because governors are worried about being reelected. And 79% of Democrats supported it, 67% of independents, and 53% of Republicans. And I know the outpouring from the Catholic Church, from the St. Louis, Kansas City, and the rest of Missouri. We have our Archbishop has spoke out, and all the bishops have come together and taken a stance against the death penalty. Religious leaders have spoken out. I had someone approach me at Mass today, a sister, and she said, Heidi, after you appealed to us from announcements the other day, I went back to my other sisters, and 17 of us signed a letter and submitted it to the governor on behalf of Shockley. And I'm having people approach me regularly that they're submitting their own individual petitions. So the movement, the grassroots part of the Catholic movement, through Catholic Mobilizing Network and what we have going on here out of St. Louis and in Missouri right now, is going to be strong. And Lance's case being all circumstantial with all the issues in it, I mean, it's a trooper he's accused of killing, and that trooper's murderer is still out there. And Lance's appeal that I was reading the other day with the DNA said, Lance says, let's test this evidence for DNA. The type of testing was not available back in 2007. I think it was 2005, 2006. And the courts are saying no. Missouri has a weird law. Missouri is one of the most difficult states. I'm not as versed in it. but Missouri is one of the most challenging states to get post conviction DNA. And you don't a claim of innocence. They don't care that you're innocent. They proved it last year when they killed Khalifa, right? I mean, they don't care. So yeah, Tuesday, join us at the Capitol if you can. Tuesday night, we'll be live streaming for those that can from MU School of Law. A member of Lance's head counsel will be there, the mitigation specialist, and myself. And then if anyone is around next week, join us on the 13th and 14th. We pray, and or if you don't pray, we're just happy if there's going to be a stay. They're asking both, right? They're asking for a stay long enough to test the DNA, but we want full clemency. So I'll quit mumbling now and rambling because.
Jeff, did you have something you wanted to add or
Yeah,
ask?
just quickly, I wanted to say that I actually got a chance to meet Lance. I guess it was last summer when David Hosier was executed. We had I was there with David, and he kind of came in and out, and I was very impressed that Lance sort of sees himself as a caretaker for a lot of those guys. David was older and had some mobility issues, and Lance was there helping him. And so I just wanted to, I actually was going to talk about the survey, but you did a great job of talking about that. So I figured I'd add that nice piece in at the end.
And I'll add to that, I appreciate you sharing it. Lance doesn't just think of himself as a caregiver, he is. If you watch that clemency video, there are guys who are out of prison now who Lance intervened and saved their life. I've been in Potosi. A current correctional officer participated. Some correctional staff are not comfortable speaking up. But he is really, are you guys going to show that one clip, Allie or Abe?
Yeah, I've got his daughter queued up.
Okay. So there's a clip on that clemency video, and it's called I think clemency video for Lance Shockley. It's pretty simple.
I'll put a link to it in the chat. You can watch it there. We'll also get it added up onto the death penalty action petition as well.
Yeah. But there's a piece where he was been a volunteer through one of the religious programs, and he said a high-ranking official with Missouri Department of Corrections that he will not name said that if he had 800 Lance Shockleys in the prison, he would be out of a job.
That's right. Well, let me share that right now, and then we'll wrap up with this case. But this is just a little snippet here from the clemency video, and you can see this is Lance's daughter.
I am Morgan Lane Shockley. I am the daughter of Lance Shockley. The relationship with my dad was pretty stagnant or just on the back burner for me for a long time because I was hurting from just not having him active in my life. But now, through the Lord's forgiveness and healing of my heart, and as I've matured, and seeing his consistency in my life, even if he's not able to be in it and outside of the prison, that I've just been able to see his love and his care for me, and just his, like I've said, just his consistency in my life and his advice and the role that he plays in my life is. I don't have another person like him. He leads me in deeper into the word, and he leads me in advice of putting people first and not always thinking that someone's to blame or that I'm in the wrong, but he's a father, and he's a good one. My dad and I speak like all week. My dad is the spiritual foundation for all of us in our family. He has devoted his time to fully know the word and understand God's word and his relationship with the Lord, and he gets to speak that into all of us. His first advice always is to pray on it, and to pray over us, and he's just, everything that ties us together through my dad is the Lord.
So there you can see what's going on with that. And if you watch that whole video, it's one person after the next, one after the next, after the next, after the next, talking about what an amazing person this is. And that's totally irrelevant to the question of his guilt. But the question has to be asked. What if we got it wrong? So are there any questions or anything more that needs to be said about Lance Shockley before we move on? I saw a question about, we got to talk about Robert Robertson. And of course, his date is the 16th. We're still only on the 14th. But last call for questions on this. And otherwise, thank you so much, Heidi. I'm looking forward to meeting you in person finally sometime this weekend. Allie, did you have anything you wanted to add? I wanted to mention that Allie has been doing a tremendous amount of work for Missourians to abolish the death penalty, and we're seeing that all over social media. So thank you, Allie. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I don't think I have that much to add about Lance. I think Heidi really did well, and I can touch on Robert Robertson and Richard Jerf in Arizona in a little bit.
Okay, great. So with that, let's go on to, I guess the next case is Mr. Crawford, Charles Crawford in Mississippi. And with us from Mississippi, we've got a couple people. Let's start with Mitzi Magleby. Mitzi, welcome, and please fill us in on what's going on with Chuck Crawford.
Well, Mr. Crawford is convicted of a January 1993 rape and murder of Christy Ray. He does not deny guilt, but he is a completely different man from what I understand now. The man I've met is a kind, gentle man. He's a man that gets up and goes to work every day and does his prison jobs and does what he needs to do. He's kind, he's gentle. They're arguing the fact that he did not have experienced counsel, and his counsel basically, in closing arguments, told the jury he's guilty. Do what you will. And that's now what they're arguing, that was, he had a very inexperienced lawyer. He should be given life without parole. And that's, of course, that's how we agree too. Mississippi is a weird state. This is all in the governor's hand, who has publicly said that inmates are where they belong and the death penalty is in place for a reason, and it's going to always go forward with him at the helm. So we fight, the few of us that will, but we hope and pray for results, but it's a very closed off situation. And like I said, he doesn't deny guilt, but he's a good person, and he's a changed person, and I believe we should give that some merit there.
So Mitzi, you had attempted to deliver the petitions for the last person that was killed there. And you want to share that experience a little bit? You're going to put you up to that again this week or next week, I guess. But thank you for being on the ground there. And I see Jeff has something to add to that as well. So, but go ahead, and then we're going to meet somebody that actually knows, that also knows Chuck in a moment. But Jeff, go ahead, or Mitzi, Jeff, go ahead.
Sure, forgive me. I'll jump in real quick now. I'll let you take it on out. But Mitzi and I are going to be getting together Tuesday morning at 10 a.m. to do a press conference advocating for Chuck there in Jackson. And we did this last time, and we created a little bit of a wave. I'm praying that this time we create a tsunami and we just keep on going and going and going. But I'm thankful to just have the opportunity to stand with my friend Mitzi, and I want everybody to know Mitzi is second to none when it comes to abolitionists in Mississippi. She goes all over the place, talks to everybody. I'm very thankful for her. Lastly, I'll say that that Chuck, he and I spoke on the phone last week for probably about 30 or 45 minutes, but an extended amount of time. And he really is kind of a salt of the earth kind of guy. Somebody who, like Mitzi says, getting up, going and doing his thing, coming home, doing his thing. And I mean, he was speaking kindly about the warden, and he was speaking kindly about the governor, and all of these types of things. And I was very surprised because I'm sitting here thinking to myself, if somebody was trying to kill me, I don't know that I would be speaking as kindly as he is, but it sort of shows that presence of Jesus in him, that Father, forgive them for they know not what they do type of way of living. So I was very impressed with him, but look forward to standing with Mitzi and Sherwood. I'll let you take it away, my man.
Thank you. So let's introduce Sherwood Brown here, was on death row, has been exonerated and freed, but he was on death row with Chuck, and I wanted him to have a chance to share a little bit about his experience with Chuck.
Man, that's just listening to Jeff and Missy. I met them at the last execution with Richard Jordan, and I came to know these people. This is something new for me. Just being a person out there that's fighting for some of my brothers that I left back on death row in Parchment. I've been knowing Charles Crawford from day one when I first came to Parchment. I know his past and I know his present. I think when all of us come to death row, we have some kind of name tagged on us of what our lives and stuff used to be out in the world before we got accused of the crime of being sentenced to death. I'm going to give you a little history about Charles Crawford because I know Charles Crawford. I know how he came into the penitentiary. I know how he came into prison. Charles Crawford come into prison as a person was a worldly person. And out of the years of knowing Charles Crawford, we call him Chuck. I came to know Chuck. I didn't finish school and stuff like that. Chuck had a lot of, back then, there was a lot of racism and stuff on death row. And so, blacks on one side, whites on the other side. But, I came to know Chuck. I came to know Chuck. I came to know Richard Jordan. I came to know Paul Woodard. I came to know Matthew Puckett. I came to know all these white guys I'm naming. I came to know all these guys, man. We became friends. We became brothers. Chuck was one of the people that helped save my life. He did a lot of my legal work for me because I didn't understand the legal work. And he helped file papers and stuff for me to help try to save my life when they tried the state of Mississippi tried to slip some stuff in on me, a lawyer that I didn't even know I had, and had them file 6 pieces of paper on me on a post-conviction. Man, these folks were finna execute me. And Chuck helped me with that with my lawyer from out of New York, Miss Eleanor Jackson Peel. As the years and stuff go on, me and Chuck we became good friends. He did the whole 360 with his life. He turned his life over to God. I'm seeing a lot of stuff. I've been out for 4 years off of death row. I grew up with these guys. I went to death row when I was 24 years old, and now I'm 57, and I'm out in the free world, but I still feel like I'm locked up. I still talk to some of my friends and stuff that's on death row. I don't get a chance to talk to everybody, but I don't get a chance to talk to Chuck. But I'm going to hold up for Chuck. I'm going to be there for him, and I hope and pray to God that this don't go forward. You know, they try to get a lot of us is lined up in Mississippi to get executed right now. A lot of brothers, all of us brothers, no matter what color our skin is, we still brother. Like I said, I grew up with them guys. You know, we had our ups and downs, but man, when the state of Mississippi is killing one of you, ought to see the pain and the hurt that's in these guys, because we see that we don't want to see it. We hard at one moment of our life, but when the state of Mississippi is taking one of our life, you can just see the quietness and the peace that's in there, man. And guys, man, this stuff is real. People out in the world don't understand that this stuff is real, man. Man, they almost took my life if it hadn't have been for Charles Crawford, Richard Jordan, Joseph Brown. These guys saved my life, or I wouldn't be here today talking, man, because the state slid some stuff in on me. The state of Mississippi slid some stuff in on me and said I admitted to killing some people, and I had never said that in my whole entire life. Man, I just I don't know what to say, you know.
I think you said it all, brother. You said it all. I mean, you did 26 years on death row in Mississippi, and now you're out to tell the story. So I put a link to your GoFundMe in the chat here so people can go and read up on your case and get to know you a little bit more. And if they want to chip in and help you, since you got no compensation yet, then they can do that too. And we're grateful for you being with us. We do need to move on. Any last thoughts?
Yeah, my thing is, man, I'm there for my brothers. I don't care where you're from, all over the United States. You need me to speak out, I'll speak out. I don't have the funds to do like other people, travel and stuff like that. And now I got a little older, but I don't have the funds. I don't have the means to travel to speak like Jeff and Missy and Mr. Abraham and stuff. But I'm willing to do these things. I want to fight for my brother. Like I said, you come from another mother, but you're still my brother because you still got the same blood inside of you that I got in me. You know, it's just the foolish people's out there on the foolish stuff. Hey, man, we on something else, man. We need to come together, man, and try to do something to help get us out of prison and for us to put the racism
here in the chat. So,
yeah.
Amen. Stick around with us, Sherwood. We're grateful that
you're
here.
Guys.
And thank you. Thank you for stepping up for Chuck.
I'm not going anywhere. I'm here.
Right on. Right on. All righty. So we're going to move on now. So we have next up is on the 16th. God willing, this is going to get stopped. All of these should be stopped, right? But Robert Robertson is scheduled to be killed in Texas on the 16th. And this is the second time he's had an execution date. And the courts have said, no, 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 no. In fact, because the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals hasn't ruled on the motions in front of that court to allow a full evaluation of the evidence that's been uncovered and put forth just in the last year. You know, we're still waiting, and it'll be Wednesday morning when the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals. Actually, they've shifted to Thursday mornings now. I just got that notice the other day. So maybe we'll hear about it before then, but otherwise the day that we're looking at is either this Thursday or next Thursday before the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals will rule. But because they haven't, the attorneys in the case Gretchen Sween has filed a motion to the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, the federal courts, saying they haven't ruled, you need to do something. And that's my very non-lawyer, here's what's happening. What's amazing is just everybody that's come forward around this case, including this on Saturday, and you can find this on the Innocence Project Facebook page. They went live, about a 20-minute video of the rally that was held, led by the autism groups in Texas. Which is amazing that they've been organized and coming out in leadership. The groups that are concerned about autism, the groups that are concerned about the science around shaken baby, the legislators, that have come on this case. This is actually one of the reasons why we don't have a big presentation about this tonight, because there's so much out there that you can already find about Robert Robertson. But we do have somebody with us who knows Robert Robertson, and she's going to share in a minute. And anybody that's here in the chat, feel free to put your comments too and your reflections if you have direct experience with Robert or Manuela, his wife, or any of these people. But at the end of the day, this is one of these, this is not just one person with a strong innocence claim. We already heard about Lance. We're going to hear about Anthony in a moment, in a little while, but there's 3 people with strong innocence claims among the 8 scheduled to be executed in October. We're not only hearing about Lance or Anthony, we're hearing all about Robert, which is why we're lifting up everybody, including those 2. So that's the situation that we're in, is waiting for the courts to intervene, because the executive, the attorney general, and the governor are not going to stop this. And there appears to be no power other than the courts that can stop them. And God forbid the administration in Texas starts acting like the president and just ignores whatever the orders of the courts are, because that would be a problem too. But so far, they'll listen to the courts, it seems. So that's the space that we're in. It's kind of a very much, we're waiting to see what happens. And we're hoping that the courts do the right thing. And we don't know what's going to happen. What we do know is a year ago, we were a couple hours past Robert Robertson's execution time before he got a final stay, and it was a very unusual stay. So they weren't going to stop then. They're doing their best not to stop now. Allie, you've been in touch with Manuela and with Robert for years now, and maybe you can add some thoughts to this space.
Yeah, so I was actually there the day that Manuela and Robert were married. Coincidentally, it was my first time visiting my very good friend Kasol Chantakuman, who, as most of you I'm sure are aware, was executed in Texas a little over 3 years ago. And I did not know Robert's case or name at that point. Manuela was with somebody else that I knew who was also visiting from Germany, and it was through the other person that I met her, and like she was in her wedding gown and stuff inside of Texas Death Row, and we opted to take her out for dinner afterwards just because like I just wanted her to feel celebrated because her wedding didn't look like most people's weddings. But yeah, we go back like 3.5 years or so now. I have not known Robert that whole time. But I did start writing him maybe like a year and a half ago, and things have been messy with that, but he is just always so overwhelmingly thankful for all of us that are thinking about him. When he sends me these messages, they are just like beaming with just like gratitude and how much he's praying for everybody. And he really is a sweet guy. And I mean, he's perfect for Manuela. And so it breaks my heart that she's gearing up to potentially lose her husband. For again, after last year's craziness. And that I think is one of the most like heartbreaking elements of this. And I know that this kind of dynamic happens. We've seen it a number of times where wives have lost their husbands in this way, and it is just so, it destroys you. And so I don't have that much else to say about Robert, but it is like terrifying what's happening right now with his case, and the fact that the only reason he got a stay last year is because the Texas legislators who have supported him they went into a very abnormal, never before seen in this context, legal maneuver that granted him a stay through a civil court so that he could appear at a hearing for these Texas legislators to discuss how their forensic junk science law and how they can actually make it such that the state has to uphold that law. And every single time they tried to have that hearing last year, either I think it was like the governor or attorney general or TDCJ refused to bring Robert to the place because they didn't want a death row inmate in the Texas Capitol, which is just insane. So, I mean, this is just one of the most horrific cases ever. Yes, the case with Lance Shockley is horrible, as is the case with Anthony Boyd. But when you're convicted of killing your baby child, and you don't even get to grieve that, you're forced to start fighting for your life on Texas death row or whatever death row, and now you're facing execution yet again. I mean, it is just like the worst thing. And his daughter, Nikki, her and I were born in the same year. So if she was still alive, her and I would be the same age. And I mean, we saw this with Lamont Hunter in Ohio, who's fortunately home now. We saw a similar situation with Melissa Lucio there in Texas, who is still fighting. But it's just particularly egregious when it's not just innocence, but it's innocence of murdering your child that you're about to get executed for. So I'll leave that off. I'll leave it there, but it's just, there's a reason why so many people are talking about this case. I wish we would talk about all of these cases as much as we have Robert's, but there's a reason why they're talking about Robert's case. It is just insane.
Yeah.
Okay. That's it.
Jeff has a comment too, but I want to just add that the reason that they wanted Robert to testify to that hearing and what that hearing was about was there was a law passed over a decade ago now in Texas that said if the science changes that was used to convict you, then you get to have a rehearing about that evidence because the science is different. And they wanted to hear what Robert's take was on that and his experience, because the question is, were they actually adhering to that law? So, I mean, it wasn't even about guilt or innocence so much as the experience he had with the science used to convict him has changed. And now there's a new understanding of that. And that's what helps us understand this theory that they have that Robert could not have killed the child. Jeff, I know Allie has something to add too.
I didn't really have much of anything. I just was scratching, but I was going to say that, I think that what makes all of these executions happening together difficult is that you have all of these different people competing for attention, or all of these cases competing for attention. You've got, and certainly Rob Robertson's getting a lot of attention and has gotten a lot of attention, and that's something that should be celebrated. But I think I always want to push and say just because a case is not popular doesn't mean that it doesn't have tremendous merit and doesn't deserve as much of our energy as everyone else.
Thank you. And that's exactly what we've been saying for months now. Allie?
Yeah, so you mentioned the junk science law that was passed about 10 years ago. I forget exactly the situation, but it was like shortly before Robert had his last execution date. I think it was the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals granted relief to a different individual who was convicted of Shaken Baby. They were not death sentenced. They had a different sentence. And I think they upheld the fact that the science had changed in this other guy's case. And so people for Robert Robertson were bringing that up because if they could grant relief to this other guy, why can't they grant relief to Robert? And of course, they refused to grant relief to Robert, even though they had just upheld it. I want to say it was just like a couple weeks before that. I don't remember exactly. But I had one other thing I was going to say.
It was that week.
It was that week. Yeah, it was very close
together. Week that Robert was denied, that other prisoner got his relief. And the arguments were practically the same.
Yeah.
And that's the craziness about this. So anyway, and just like what Jeff was saying, and what I've said, and what we've said in our communications repeatedly, there's 8 people being executed, not just one.
Mhm.
But you can go to the Innocence Project or maybe the Texas Coalition to Abolish the Death Penalty or other organizations, and that's what they're talking about, and that's why you see less of it from us, because the rest of the world is talking about it. We're pushing all of these cases and these other innocence cases. So with that, Ali, anything else to say about Robert before we move on?
I thought I had one other thing, but the other thing that I wanted to mention, which was getting talked about a lot last year, but I haven't really seen it very much this year, is the fact that one of the investigators who had originally, was part of the team that arrested Robert and built the case against him.
Yeah.
Hold on. Sorry, my mom is walking in. He came out and he actually met Robert Robertson last year and apologized to him for his role in sending Robert to death row. Okay, that's all I'll say. Sorry.
He's one of the leading advocates for Robert's freedom. So, Ali, thank you. We're going to come back to you when we get to Arizona. We're going to skip Arizona for a moment. Arizona's Richard Jerf is scheduled to be killed on the 17th, but we've got some folks here from Alabama. And I want to make sure that we hear from Ronald and then Jeff about Anthony Boyd, and then we'll come back and talk about Richard in Arizona. So, Ronald, you've been so patient. Welcome. You want to introduce yourself a little bit, and we're grateful that you're with us. Ronald here with Project Hope to Abolish the Death Penalty and whatever else you're aligning with tonight.
Yeah, good evening, Abe. Good evening, everyone. Volunteer for Project Hope to Abolish the Death Penalty. Just here representing them more than anything, holding space for Esther, who is not feeling too well at this time, but we're so thankful for her and her 25 plus years of service. And by my math, she probably don't want me discussing this, but by my math, she began probably to work with Project Hope to Abolish the Death Penalty when she was roughly 67 years old. So just want to say, in a season of life when a lot of people are looking to take it easier and wind down careers, Miss Esther stepped into, I won't call it, hopefully submission is a better word for it. But just that amazes me, and just we're so thankful for her and want to give her honor. And of course, thanks to Death Penalty Action for sharing this case in Alabama, for Anthony. And thanks to the team there, Ali, Trish, others that I don't know and haven't on the call. Abe, for sure. For you, thankful for you and your Mr. Boyd, but he is the chairman of Project Hope to Abolish the Death Penalty, a very unique organization, the only one in the world that its board members exist on death row. If you've been on these calls, we've talked about that. So very thankful for his leadership, and just want to share a few thoughts that I asked Esther about and some other gentlemen at Holman Correctional Facility, which is where the execution chamber is, about their thoughts on Ant. And they referred to him, both Esther and the board, refer to him as a leader, a powerhouse leader, very innovative and outside thinker. It was his idea to engage the United Nations in some of this nitrogen hypoxia protocol, and Jeff can probably speak more into that. He's been on the board twice. He sees the needs of others and intercedes for them. In my language, in my faith language, we would call that pastoral or very fatherly. He has respect to the staff, and I'm told some of the staff is very concerned that he has now received a date. He is not only a friend of those on the board and to Esther, but he's also family. And when a previous chairman was executed, Ant was very impactful in bringing his strength alongside them at this time. And now here we are now, where perhaps Anthony receives, perhaps he has to go through that on the 23rd of this month. Just would like to ask, I don't know if she's on the call now, that you guys hold space for Esther Of course, her and Anthony work close together. So if this does happen, and we're going to use that word if, uh, I'm sure it will be very difficult for her, not her words, but my words. So for Alabama, really quickly, this is our sixth nitrogen execution since the onset of nitrogen executions. Started with Kenny Smith in early 2024. There were three in 2024. There have been three in 2025. This would be the fourth one. Overall, the fourth execution in this state. Would like to reference back to Jeffrey Todd West for just a minute, because there was a big forgiveness story out of that was picked up by the media, and Allie may be throwing some information on some of those threads that some of the media covered there. But the victim's son, Will Berry, admirably showed up to the petition delivery that Abe was at for Jeffrey Todd West, and we were told that it would be sent on to the governor, but there was never communications. Will had asked for a face-to-face conversation. Abe asked for a face-to-face conversation about this, and that never happened. Will Berry, the son of the victim, wanted to meet Jeffrey and talk to him and extend forgiveness, and it didn't happen. So that's kind of some of the things we're up against in this fight. Also want to point to this because I know that Anthony still has some things in front of the district court. Clearly, I'm not a lawyer and I don't want to speak too much into this, but he has some things in front of the district court about nitrogen hypoxia, the constitutionality of that. And I'd just like to point out that the AO.com witness this execution reported in her writings that Jeffrey turned green and foamed at the mouth. Jeff's going to speak in just a minute, and I know he can clearly speak to the foaming at the mouth from his time in execution chamber. But that turning green, that's the first time I've heard that language used by a witness. And, it's not the bill of goods we were sold on this nitrogen execution. We were told the person would be unconscious in a matter of seconds. Clearly, if they're foaming at the mouth, if they're turning green, I don't believe you can say they're unconscious. So I'll leave it at that. I want to point out that the state of Alabama is already seeking another execution. Just to kind of pull the curtain back on that one a little bit. I'm told there's some serious health concerns with this gentleman, and he is full-time wheelchair bound. But I won't say I'll look forward to a call on that. We may have to discuss that another time because we're focused on October now. Also, this new person that they're seeking today, I want to make sure this is clear. He was not the shooter. That's documented that he was not the shooter. So we have a history of that in Alabama as well, where the person that is executed is not the shooter in the crime, yet they're the ones that receive the capital punishment.
Well, thank you, Ronald. And stick around. We're going to go to Jeff Hood now, Reverend Dr. Jeff Hood, because he is the spiritual advisor for Anthony Boyd. Jeff?
All right. Yeah, it's my pleasure to work with Anthony. We've gotten to be very close. And, I think that the reality is that Anthony is someone who is very determined to not just say the right thing, but very determined to do the right thing, determined to be the right thing. And I think in such determination, he sort of has set himself apart when it comes to the work with those guys on death row and the work of Project Hope. I think that it's important to state that we're in a space right now where, we have planned a tremendous amount for the coming weeks to try to save Anthony's life. There is litigation that's on deck. I spoke with his lawyers Friday. There's a variety of paths that we have all, engaged, thought about. Don't want to say too much, but in terms of religious liberty and whatnot, I think that it's also important to say that his family are amazing people. It's been my privilege to get to know them as well, his mother, Patricia, his brother, Maurice. And on Wednesday, we will be gathering in Talladega, Alabama, to do a billboard unveiling right across the street from the Talladega courthouse where Anthony was convicted and sentenced to death. It's going to be a real moment for the family to get to sort of speak their piece. A lot of the times, I think we tend to wait until the last moments in order for these families to get their chance to say their piece. And I think what we're trying to do is put them out there first and foremost. I was thankful for Abe. I guess it was last week that we did the billboard unveiling in Montgomery. Thankful for that movement and that moment.
And I have the news clip if you want to share that.
Go ahead, my friend. And it's wonderful to be down there with Esther. Got a chance to spend the night with Esther last week. Very thankful for her. Spoke to her this afternoon, just about what's moving and what's shaking in terms of going forward. And on Thursday, sitting down with CBS affiliate in Montgomery to do an extended interview about Anthony and the case and what Alabamians can do to push back against this situation. We're moving into the following week. I'll be in and out of Alabama. I'm actually flying to Florida to speak at a church on the 15th, but immediately after that, I'm coming into Alabama. We've got events planned from all the way from the 17th through the 23rd. I'm thankful that we're going to be at a church in Auburn throughout the day on Sunday. Monday, we're going to be at Troy University the whole day. And so we really are trying to do as much as we possibly can to create awareness, to engage the media. We've got the family doing interviews with the Anniston Star and the Daily Home there in Talladega. So the goal being that people can't help but hear not just Anthony's legal story, but also his personal story. If worst comes to worst, we have got a number of ways to push back that are left, and I think we're pulling out all the stops. We're doing everything that we possibly can do. His attorneys, me, his family, Project Hope, and we're going to continue to push. Like I said, though, if worst comes to worst, I will be in the chamber with Anthony, and I think that it's something that certainly continues to weigh heavy on me. The thought of seeing what I saw again, seeing another nitrogen execution. If Anthony's executed, that'll be the 11th execution that I've seen. But I know that a lot of y'all have heard me say this repeatedly, but I've seen nothing that compares to the horror of a nitrogen execution. And so it's my prayer that Anthony's case, and I know it's his prayer too, that Anthony's case will be this sort of ignition point for people to talk not just about his case, but about nitrogen. Even his legal case that is proceeding in federal court is trying to push back against nitrogen as being unconstitutional, and not just for him, but for everyone on death row. So I'm hopeful that we'll change some hearts and minds, and I'm hopeful that something in Alabama will change.
Thank you, Jeff. So so Anthony is the lead plaintiff in the current challenge to nitrogen suffocation execution. So we're waiting for a ruling on that case. We don't know when that's going to come, or do we know when they're expected to rule?
There's a chance. There's an expectation, but I never want to trust chances and expectations. But the thought is that it could come this week.
We'll see. So I have queued up news coverage from when we unveiled the first billboard for Anthony Boyd. So let's take a look at that real quick, and then we'll see if Ronald has anything more to add before we hear from Allie about Arizona, and then wind it down because we're already an hour and a half into this program. It's longer because this will be the first time in like 20 years that we've had 8 executions in 1 month in the United States. And take a look at this.
Mark Bullock, save Anthony Boyd. That's the phrase you may see on billboards in Montgomery soon as part of a new anti-death penalty campaign.
It's a protest of Anthony Boyd's execution, which is scheduled for next month. Alabama political correspondent Jessica Umbro joins us live in the Capitol studio. And Jessica, what are anti-death penalty advocates trying to say with this campaign?
Well, they're saying while they're against the death penalty entirely, they're also protesting the way that Boyd is set to be executed by nitrogen hypoxia. Boyd had picked nitrogen as his execution method back in 2019. But Boyd, as well as the anti-death penalty advocates, now say after seeing a handful of Alabama executions that were carried out in this way, they say it shouldn't happen again.
If you're going to kill people, at least have the decency to know who they are.
Who is Anthony Boyd? He's been an Alabama death row inmate since 1995, convicted as one of 4 men responsible for the 1993 killing of Gregory Hughley in Talladega. But Reverend Jeff Hood of the Execution Intervention Project says Boyd's case is more complicated.
He's somebody who got to death row and figured out how to make a difference on death row and off of death row.
Esther Brown, executive director of Project Hope to Abolish the Death Penalty, says Boyd is the chairman of her death row inmate-run organization that's looking to end executions in Alabama and nationwide.
I think that's who he always was, taking care of those who need it.
Boyd is less than a month away from his scheduled execution by nitrogen hypoxia. But Reverend Hood says he saw the method carried out on Kenneth Smith last year. He says this mask is just like the one that he saw during that execution.
I think that the people of Alabama, they need to see this mask. This is a torture device. I wish that everyone in Alabama could try this mask on. To see what a torture device on your face looks like.
And if you are not driving by the billboard, Hood says he wants to raise another question to all.
Do the people of Alabama want this to be done in their name?
Now, they also raised questions about Boyd's innocence, and I reached out to Governor Ivey's office for comment about those concerns, about the death penalty in general and nitrogen hypoxia. I was referred to the execution authorization letter that the governor sent out last month, where she said she has no plans on granting clemency.
All right, thank you so much. Well, the 30-hour time.
Well, that's what it looks like when you actually get an effective story about your activism and the message that we were trying to get out. So there it is. And there's the mask. Anybody can buy one of these on Amazon or straight from Allegro Industries in South Carolina. All right, I see Charles is here. Welcome, Charles, and we'll give you any thoughts you want to add real quick before we go to Arizona and hear from Allie about Arizona. Welcome, Charles.
Yes, Abe. You know, we come on here time and time again, and we talk about the death row inmates, and we talk about their crimes, and then we turn around and we're asking clemency from other killers. We've watched time and time again with all kinds of cases. Some could actually be innocent. Some of them had so many different reasons not to kill them, but yet and still we see the governor go on and kill them. Numerous amount of governors. So, you know, it's getting to me like, are we talking about the death row inmates who we seem have changed? We seem who have shown that they have a lot of humanity about themselves. But now let's talk about these governors who we go in front of and present things in front of them time and time and time again, who does not show mercy, who does not show any type of human compassion. So, you know, I don't know who we're talking about too much anymore. Is it the death row inmates, Or is it us going to these governors time and time again, asking for mercy, asking for clemency, asking so many things? And it's almost like we're sitting here expecting to have that kindness being shown by these professional killers. You know, these aren't leaders, and we're going to them as if they're leaders. And we're talking about these cases. You can substitute these names for any of these cases. We're still talking to the same governors who lack to show that compassion and that humanity to even take a look at these cases and to commute some of these cases.
Charles, thank you. That's all I want to say. I love you. Thank you.
Amen. And that is you know, Charles, you always have a way with honing right in, asking for clemency from killers. You know, that's exactly what we're doing. So, Ronald, before we move on, anything you want to add for Alabama? You were down at the State House last time by yourself, and we want to. That's another thing that we're trying to do is just get more folks in Alabama who are with us thinking, okay, I need to get out on the streets too. So we're working to build that. We are looking for leadership at the state capitol because Ronald's going to be out of the state. But so there's some opportunities for people to step up. Ronald?
Yeah, thanks for mentioning that, Abe. For sure, I will unfortunately be out of town on October 23rd if we think what's going to happen that day does happen. You know, there's so many ways you could go with this. I know we don't like to focus on the why, but if you go back and do your Googles on how the nitrogen hypoxia was rolled out, haphazard doesn't even come close to it. The men on the row were asked way back in 2018, before there was a protocol produced, they were given, it may be 31 days, but they were given 30 or 31 days to opt in if that's the way they want to be executed. And if they didn't, the window on it was closed. So many of them, without even being able to ask the question, what is nitrogen hypoxia, without even being able to talk to their attorneys, were forced to make a decision. And this may be where we're at with Anthony's case, is now that we've seen some of these and now the story's getting out on them, it's like, whoa, I didn't sign on for that. But yet, does anyone care to listen to that? Does it matter? If you're somebody in power, it doesn't seem to.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because last week I was at a legislative hearing in Ohio, where I live, where they're talking about bringing nitrogen hypoxia in. And that's what the bill sponsor got up and said, these guys chose gas suffocation. And there was no ability in that moment to correct him, to say they had a piece of paper put in their hands and told they had to check a box and sign it and one or the other. And at that point in 2019, they didn't have any mechanism for gas suffocation. So of course they picked that. And that's who they started up when Alabama started executing people after COVID. They started up with the people that chose lethal injection. Of course, that's what set us on the path to gas suffocation, is because they kept messing up the lethal injections with Kenny Smith and with Alan Miller. And, both those guys were sent back to their cells alive to wait out gas suffocation. That's why they're also talking about the firing squad, as they've made the firing squad is is now the primary method of execution in Idaho. That's also in the Ohio bill. They're going to amend the bill to include that. They also just, if you didn't hear, Governor Stein in North Carolina signed House Bill 307 on Friday, which allows for other methods of execution, including firing squad, when they're ready to resume executions. And that's what that bill is trying to do. So our work's cut out for us. We have 4 new dates just set in Tennessee for 2026. So anyway, thank you all. We've got one more case we need to talk about, and that is Richard Jerf. And Allie, are you available? Because she's been on point for this one, working with our friends at Death Penalty Alternatives for Arizona, which is the state group. Nobody from that group was available to be with us tonight, but we'll be hearing from them hopefully a week from Thursday, 10 a.m. Pacific time, when that execution's going on. Allie?
Hey, Allie, one
Yes.
second before you go, I just wanted to say one more thing about nitrogen. And I think this is something that we have seen over and over again in state after state. We saw it in Ohio, we saw it in Arkansas. When people get up and they talk about this method, they say, all you do is you just go to sleep. It's not that big of a deal. It's like you were getting, going to the dentist. You just get knocked out. It's no big deal. The reality is that e- even people talking about it, even the press talking about it, even a lot of these guys on death row talking about it, you can't describe how horrible this is and how just completely just an obliteration of humanization of humanity that this is. And I think it's important to simply say that anybody that is talking about it that hasn't seen it doesn't know what they're talking about. And so we need to listen, whether it's reporters or whether it's spiritual advisors or witnesses, we need to listen to the people who have actually seen it.
They don't care, Jeff.
Charles, you might be right, but I do know that the only thing that I can do, like that was in that clip, is I can put that mask on and have people at least take 1 second to say, damn, that looks a lot different than what I thought it did, or give a little bit more description. I mean, even Ronald mentioning that Ivana Henrique started talking about Jeff West turning green. I mean, I guess what I'm trying to say is we have to get people closer to the horror. And only when we get people closer to the horror will they start realizing how horrible the horror really is. Sorry, Allie.
No, it's okay. Here we go. So we don't have a ton of information about Richard. Hold on. Let me find. I have too many tabs open. Sorry. So Richard Jeff is facing execution in Arizona on October 17th. I think he's rounding out the week. Yeah, then it'll be 6 days until the next execution. But what's concerning, not just about his case specifically, but about Arizona, is the fact that a couple years ago, I'm sure most of you remember that Arizona had a couple pretty high profile botched lethal injections at the end of Governor Doug Ducey's administration. And so when the new governor, Katie Hobbs, came in and her attorney general came in, and not to politicize this issue, but the death penalty is very political. Doug Ducey was a Republican. Katie Hobbs is a Democrat. And so I think from a lot of people, there was kind of an expectation that we wouldn't be seeing any executions in Arizona anytime soon. And when Governor Hobbs came in, or maybe even when she was still campaigning, she declared that she was going to have transparency, especially as it related to the death penalty. And her team was going to investigate what went wrong during those botched lethal injections and how they can address it so that it doesn't keep happening. And what we know, and we saw earlier this year when Aaron Gunches was executed in Arizona, the governor and attorney general allowed the execution to happen despite the fact that their investigation into Arizona's problematic lethal injections recently never was completed. It was never published. Nobody knows what came of that. It just kind of fell off the face of the earth. And so that is, I think, the most concerning thing. Aaron Gunches, I hate to use this word, but he was somebody we would consider a volunteer. So I feel like there wasn't that much discussion around that. And Richard Jerv, he's not necessarily a volunteer in the same respect, but from folks in Arizona, what I've heard from them is that he's basically at peace. And so in terms of what Arizona is doing, their biggest, what they're focusing on is the issues surrounding the lethal injection protocol and the fact that there's been no transparency. And I mean, I know in the 90s we saw tons of executions by Democratic politicians, and it was some of those that signed really substantial legislation that impacted this issue for many years to come. But I also think there was an element of we hadn't seen a Democratic governor execute somebody in at least a few years. And I have not seen it since I got into the movement. And so I think at least I was expecting that Arizona executions would not go through. Here we are, and they've scheduled another execution for Richard Jerf on the 17th. So in terms of what we know about him, he was 23 years old when this happened, and he was undiagnosed on the autism spectrum, and he also had brain damage. Oh, sorry. I'm like mixing up my words. He had autism. He was on the autism spectrum, but he also has brain damage. That was already a thing when he committed the crime that ended up landing him on death row. He is convicted of killing 4 people, a family, 2 parents and their children. He also, like many people facing execution in the United States, had an effective counsel representing him throughout his legal history and at trial, including an attorney who suffered a psychotic break when she was representing him. As a result, the courts never considered the full extent of his serious mental health issues, his brain damage, when they decided to sentence him to death. And something that his attorney notes is that the death penalty is not reserved for somebody like Richard, who is presently not at risk of harming anybody around him, and he can function well in prison, and that executing him will not serve justice. So, I mean, we talk about these issues all the time. Autism, like Robert Robertson, brain damage, like these issues appear so often, and it's not a coincidence. It's these people that we see over and over and over represented on death rows across this country because we send the most vulnerable people to death row, not the people who have committed the most brutal crimes, what am I saying? We send the most vulnerable people to death, not the ones who committed the worst crimes. And this is yet another example of that. And as we talked on our vigil last week, it seems like the issues in these cases are getting more and more like insane is not the right word, but like mind-boggling. Because it's not just some of these cases, it is every single case we are seeing right now has tons of issues in it that went like unheard by the legal system and by the people who are supposed to decide on clemency for these individuals. So I'll leave it off. I'll leave it there. That's what we know about Richard Jerf.
Thank you, Ali. And
Abe, I had a question. Wasn't it Arizona that spent a truckload of money on the drugs back in the late? Maybe you're not familiar with that, or maybe Ali knows, or maybe Reverend Dr. Hood spent a truckload.
Several states where that's happened. In Arkansas, we know that the Attorney General went to another state, met up with somebody in a parking lot of a Walmart and exchanged a bag of cash. I mean, that's how they're getting the drugs sometimes.
It was a ton of money, and it goes back to Charleston's point of, man, I hate to even think these things, but they just don't care. They don't care what it takes or what it looks like or what happens, as long as it happens. So just back to
Real quick, just touching off on Ronald, what you just said. We don't see this often, especially in states that are good at carrying out executions, which I hate to even phrase it that way. But am I mistaken, Abe? Wasn't Absolute Standards also maybe connected to Arizona? Absolute Standards was the chemical company that came under fire for providing materials for the federal government for the federal executions.
And it is thought that they also provided drugs to Arizona
and South Carolina.
That was in part of the conversation. I haven't seen any actual evidence, but that's part of that discussion. Now, Absolute Standards has said that they're not going to sell drugs anymore. Unfortunately, our legislation that we had going on in Connecticut to prohibit Connecticut corporations from exporting drugs for use in executions, that didn't pass this year. We'll probably try again next session, but yes, that's part of it. So
I just wanted to add real quick also, with regard to the botched executions and them just pushing these executions through no matter what. In Arizona specifically, I think in all three or at least two of the three executions that happened at the end of Doug Ducey's term, they were so horrifically botched that the state had to do cut down procedures, which we know is a thing, but we don't see it as often, at least since Arizona. I haven't really heard of it. But I'll let you look up what that means. But I think you can gather what that means. It's just like particularly brutal. Okay, that's it.
I would like to say hats off and kudos to Governor Mike DeWine. Ohio does have the death penalty, and he has shown these governors that you do not have to execute. He's been in there 2 terms, 8 years, and he has not executed a single person. So, that's showing you that it doesn't have to be done. Evidently, he didn't want that on his resume. He didn't want that blood on his hands. So again, kudos to Mike DeWine, 2 terms, 0 executions. I think these other governors should learn that.
We will see what we get. Uh-oh.
Can I introduce the video, or did you have anything else that you wanted to add, Abe?
Well, am I still on? Because my window disappeared.
Yes, you're still on. We see you.
Oh, okay. Well, there we go. Here, I found it. Okay. I did want to say, just on the issue of Arizona and gas suffocation. I think, Charles, you were with me out in Arizona when they had their first resumption of executions, and right across the street from where we stood our vigil on the fence of the prison property, across the street from there was a restaurant. And after the execution was over, before we were ready to leave, we decided it smelled good. We went in. It's a Chinese restaurant, and they said it was going to be 30 or 40 minutes. So we said, "Oh, we'll leave and eat on the road." And then a woman was there, and she said, "No, this is great. You need to stay and wait." Because anyway, after she finished eating, she came over and talked to us, and she said that she used to be a corrections officer in that prison, and she loved this restaurant so much that that's why she was there, because she'd been retired, but she was there in the guard tower over the execution chamber for 7 executions. And the last one was the execution of Walter LeGrand. I think this was in 1998 or 1999. He was a German citizen, and their gas chamber uses cyanide, Zyklon B, like the Nazis used. And she told us, that was the first thing she said, is, "Hey, was there an execution today?" Of course, we're there in our shirts, and and she said, and we said yes, and she said, "Was it a gas execution or a lethal injection?" And we told her it was lethal injection, and she's like, "Oh, I'm so relieved." She still supported the death penalty, but she said that she had to wear a gas mask for that gas suffocation, that the nitrogen or that cyanide gas execution in the gas chamber. She's in the guard tower just on top of that gas chamber, that execution chamber. She had to wear a gas mask during that time, and she said that she can still hear the screams of Walter LeGrand being executed. And the next day after that execution, she went to the warden, she asked for a transfer. That's what we're talking about. With that, Allie, what video do you have for us as we check out for the night?
I wanted to pull up, we had a guest last month on the forecast, Bradford Lumen. Sorry, I forgot his name for a second, but we got connected with Bradford here recently. He has known Lance for a number of years. He wrote a song a couple years ago about Lance, and he's talked about Lance wherever he could. He did a TED Talk about it, and he just wanted to be engaged in this campaign for Lance Shockley. So I thought, since we talked about Lance today, there's no better video to take us out with than a song that was written about Lance.
All right, and just as you're about to share that, I'll just say thanks everybody for being with us tonight. And there's lots of action to take this week and next as we head into a space of 6 executions in 7 days and 8 executions this month. Thanks for being with us.
What the keywords for the lyrics are here, and then give us your tune, please.
Yeah. So the chorus, it says, "Tell me your story, and I'll tell you mine. We'll sing them like a song about how love just wasn't right. I've been waiting on my heart like it's hard to find. I'm so tired of giving up one breath at a time." So I heard about Jesus on the radio, and I was humming along like it was a song that I've always known. I can never get past my circumstance. I'm a recidivist with a desperate wish for one last chance. But if I could hear you breathing just this once, if I could hear you breathing just this once, so tell me your story and I'll tell you mine. We'll sing them like a song about how love just wasn't right. I've been waiting on my heart like it's hard to find. I'm so tired of giving up one breath at a time. I know it's hard for someone to change, but the promise we made is like a crowded parade I just can't escape. And I've never known what it meant. I've got nothing to give, just this moment to live, but maybe that's well spent. But if I could hear you breathing just this once, if I could hear you breathing just this once, so tell me your story and I'll tell you mine. We'll sing them like a song about how love just wasn't right. I've been waiting on my heart like it's hard to find. I'm so tired of giving up one breath at a time. I swear
So tell me your story, and I'll tell you mine. We'll sing them like a song about how love just wasn't right. I've been waiting on my heart, like it's hard to find. I'm so tired of giving up one breath at a time.